And welcome everybody to the story behind the story. Today is Tuesday, January 22nd, 2013. I am your guest host, Alex Studer. I've been asked to be sitting in for True on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and this is my second week at doing it. This is my third show. Thank you and welcome. Thank you to Joe McNeil and Abby over at the Micro Effect. You folks are doing a tremendous job. And I know you've been having some difficulties today. Currently, the Micro Effect chat room is down. People have been unable to load it, and hopefully they'll be able to repair that and get it back up soon. I know they're fully aware of what's going on and are working diligently to get it back online. Everybody, please donate and support the Micro Effect. They literally are a shoestring mom and pop operation, and every penny counts. The archives are available for a subscription fee of $20 per month, and this is content, folks, you will not find anywhere else, with hosts like True Odd and Tom Gamble and shows like Life, Liberty, and all that jazz, Morning Liberty, and so forth. You get what you pay for. So please do your part, and if you're listening to the show and not contributing to the Micro Effect, please think twice about it. It'll really help out in the long run. And likewise, I'm doing this out of my own pocket. I'm not getting paid by anybody to do this. I'm the author of my own blog, labvirus.com, and if you feel like donating there, I'm not going to stop you. I'm here out of volunteer willfulness. I do this of my own volition, my free will, my choice. As far as yesterday's show goes, for those who listened to Dr. Ott talking about Sandy Hook, or as we're calling it, Sandy Hoax, and this Manto, the internet girlfriend story, he posted a follow-up to that at his blog, atrueott.com. That's atrueott.com, and you can listen to the follow-up from his broadcast of yesterday. Now, before we get to today's topic, I don't have any guests calling in today. I've chosen to hit a topic on the head, and I'll get to that later. What I'd like to do now is just kind of go down a couple of today's headlines and just make a few comments. I guess before I do that, I just want to remind everyone of a famous quote from one of my all-time favorite films, Fight Club. And that is, on a long enough timeline, their survival rate for everyone drops to zero. So let's remember that, folks, as we move forward here. And observe this guy, Slick Barry, at his inauguration, and the photo that was published of him at his private swearing-in a few days prior, and noticing that book under his hand is anything but a holy Bible. Folks, you're out there running around and all happy and following a cult personality, and yay, Obamacare, and yay, just remind yourselves, folks, that free cheese is always found in a mousetrap. Okay, and these 23 executive orders that he signed in response to this Sandy hoax, nowhere in any of them is gun control mentioned. It's all about lifting patient and doctor confidentiality for NSA data mining. Obamacare, I call it death care. And I worked with some folks, and we created a response to the propaganda that they were circulating in promotion of Obamacare, saying 10 things you get to have now. Well, we did a thing called 10 things you get to lose. And I have that posted on my blog. You can go and observe that, or do a search on it, whatever. Okay, so a couple of things going on today, same as it ever was, right? We have another shooting in Houston, Lone Star Community College, and apparently it was a little gun battle between two students. Latest report is perhaps one is dead, 2 more wounded, 1 in custody, 1 still at large. So, hooray! More shootings. Reuters just published an article saying that 800 children suffering narcolepsy are now being tied to recently having gotten GlaxoSmithKline's flu shot. Hooray! In Israel elections, no big news here. BB 666 is probably going to win, and so that pretty much secures the grand scheme of things that they're going to move forward with the general Middle East war that'll quickly erupt into this World War III Armageddon that everyone, including myself, has been talking about for quite a while. As far as the U.S., Japan, and China, Japan and China have been sort of fighting over these islands, and things are getting tense over there. Well, the United States aren't doing anything to help it. They're just inflaming matters. And meanwhile, China is warning that they're going to sink the entire U.S. fleet in the event of any conflict. So get ready, folks. Silver, yeah, it hit 32 again, and it seems to be on an upward trend. This is, again, no big news. And, for those who don't want to pay premium, getting coins from, retailers and people that are being sponsored to do their radio broadcasts, I would just suggest go to your local coin shop and get pre-1965 silver coinage. It's about 90% silver, and it's easily valued at spot with no premium. And you can buy it in pretty much any denomination of whatever you got in your pocket. You can probably go and buy some silver today. So these are just a couple headlines and comments that I had before I really dive into what I'm going to talk about today. And this is it's a very touchy subject. I've never really gone here before. I'm usually a very introverted person. I don't like people knowing too much about me. But I'm choosing today's topic to be, who is Alex Studer? I would very much like you, the listener, to learn a bit about who I am and where I came from, and why it is that I've chosen to do today what I'm doing with you here. I've chosen to do this in response to some seriously filthy lies that have been put out there by some, what I perceive to be actual agent provocateurs of a disinformational nature. Specifically, these 3 individuals, and I've never encountered any of them. And it just befuddles me as to why they would go so postal in efforts to create such lies about me. But I know that Truott is no stranger to this type of treatment, and I kind of knew this was going to happen after I chose to publish some information about 2 of these people, which I knew that they would want censored. But basically, I'm speaking to these 3 individuals. Quote-unquote Dr. Len Horowitz, who's nothing more than a dentist. He prides himself on having a fake knighthood of Malta, which is nothing more than a false thing that was created by a WHO-sponsored organization known as OIUCM, where Rima Labo is involved, and anyone with $1,000 can go there and get yourself a fake knighthood of Malta. And then Len's lover / sidekick / cohort sidekick, whatever you want to call this creepy woman, Sherry Kane. And then finally, a third one that kind of came to the forum after these first 2 started their attacks. Someone who's very creepy and again filled with lies and disinformation of just an obscene nature. This person who calls herself Barbara Hartwell, whose middle name is Politis, Politis, And apparently she refuses to acknowledge that and goes by something else. For what reasons, I don't really know, but that's beside the point. So yeah, I mean, this all kind of stemmed, my decision to do this today, out of two recent events. And one is, I'm not terribly proud or happy to say this, but I was setting up another date with this girl that I'd started seeing, and she'd chosen not to go out with me and go out with someone else on the night that we'd tried to arrange going out. And she told it to me. And in the same sentence, she said to me, "But I can see you Saturday." And so I just kind of said, "Well, no, I don't think so." And that's, keep going. Nice knowing ya. But she had said to me that, "Oh yeah, I'll get to know who you are. I'll look you up." Da 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 da. And I didn't really think about it because I'm not really, I don't sit around and do searches of my own name on Google and find out what are people thinking about me. And then another friend of mine who I'm talking to the other day, and he's like, "Yo, dude, yeah, what's this about?" And then he forwarded me some links and some stuff that these cretins have published, and I mean they're just straight out slanderous lies, libelous, just garbage, filth. And I just said, "I don't know, man." And he's like, "Yeah, I found it, just doing a search on your name." And so, I did the same thing, and lo and behold, there's that stuff. And a lot of it is coming from this third individual calling herself Hartwell. And I, again, whoa, no idea how she fits into this picture or what. But all the same, I'm flattered for all the attention, folks. But in order to clear the air and set the record straight and show these moronic losers who choose to spend their time lying to the public about somebody they don't even know and have no idea about what the truth is, I'm going to tell my best version of what it is that makes me who I am, where I came from, a little bit, basically, my biography. I've been sitting around the last 24 hours trying to type this up to the best of my ability, and I don't even know if I'm going to get through it in this 2-hour show today. If I don't, we'll lay it over and we'll continue in the next session tomorrow, because I think it's real important, especially just from my own standpoint, to get it on the record so that it's there in defense of this crap, but also so that folks can maybe even more identify with someone like themselves who has chosen to kind of stand up for what they believe in and do the right thing, which is, it's costly, but at the same time it can be pretty cool. So here we go, folks, and I'm not promising that we're going to get to the end of this, and I'm not promising a pretty story either. I'm going to tell you some stories about myself that I'm not necessarily proud of. I've made some serious mistakes in my life, and I've had to learn some hard lessons. So some of this stuff is really kind of hard for me to tell you. I'm actually pretty nervous over here, but I'm going to do it anyway. So bear with me, folks. I'm going to give it the best shot I can because this is pretty scary for me to do. So I'm looking at my outline right here, and it pretty much starts out, who is Alex Studer, and we're going to start with my birth and early childhood. I was born in the spring of 1967 in San Francisco, California. My father was Douglas Dysart, D-Y-S-A-R-T, of New Mexico, and my mom, Betty McGowan, M-C-G-O-W-I-N, of Chapman, Alabama. And she had moved to San Francisco after finishing up college and taking some classes at Juilliard, and she kind of moved out here with some of her biddy friends and got married along the same time as some of her biddy friends. And one of her best friends ended up marrying Kurt Adler, who became the maestro, the conductor of the San Francisco Symphony. So I'm kind of sidetracking a little bit, but so this guy Douglas Dysart, he apparently was a programmer of the world's first credit card, MasterCard. I think he was potentially much more than that. I don't really know. What I know about him is that he somehow had a problem with former Governor Ronald Reagan, that he became alcoholic, and when I was age 2, he had been found, after crashing the car, to be lying to her instead of going to work, which apparently he'd been fired. He'd been going down to the local bar where spooks are famous to have hung out. CIA spooks. So my mom divorced him at that point, and while in church, she met a guy 19 years older than her. His name was Frank Melbourne Studer. And he married her, and she adopted me paternally, and my name changed. And so I have kind of 2 birth certificates. They gave birth to a daughter, so I have a half-sister, 3 years younger than me. And we lived my early childhood right on the Presidio wall of Presidio of San Francisco. The background to my mother: she grew up in rural Chapman, Alabama, as a product of what I perceive to be a deeply Masonic family. I have one cousin who recently died. He was a first lieutenant in the U.S. Marine Corps. He went to Yale. My mother's dad and his 3 brothers all went to Oxford together. One was a Rhodes Scholar. And my granddad founded the library at Pembroke College in Oxford, England, the Julian F. McGowan Library. I have many cousins actually named Mason. My mom's sister married a CIA agent who worked under George Bush Sr. during Vietnam, and he's a direct descendant of our former president, Sam Adams. His name was Samuel A. Adams, and they had a farm in Leesburg, Virginia. And this man, my first uncle, he taught me to drive, how to shoot, how to tip a cow, how to make a proper omelet, and a lot more. In high school, my mom went to a place in McLean, Virginia called Madeira, which apparently our family has the largest legacy at, and it's a female private high school. And then my mom went to Finch and Briarcliff in New York. These are private schools that are no longer there. She did some studying at Juilliard, became an accomplished concert pianist. Our entire family was very musical. Now, focusing on this guy Dysart, not a whole lot is known. I never really had any contact with him. I was told he had mental breakdowns. He had sent threatening letters to President Reagan or something like that. I understand now that he's deceased. He tried to call me every time my birthday came around, and I actually did speak to him once on my 16th birthday when he called and no one else was around. Now, regarding this man, Frank Melbourne Studer, who adopted me paternally, again, 19 years older than my mom. He already had 3 daughters from a previous marriage, already in high school at the time that he married my mother. So, to me, we became the Brady Bunch, with me being the only boy among 4 girls. My dad was ex-mil. He was a U.S. Army corporal during World War II, and he survived the Battle of the Bulge. He was a talented singer, a golf champ, and a pillar in the San Francisco Olympic Club, and he was the last resident ever to live at the Lakeside Clubhouse. He died 12 days after 9/11 of pulmonary fibrosis after chemo for recurrent Hodgkin's. When I was age 3, I was found to be fingering Hey Jude on the piano to a record. And my mom saw this and immediately signed me up for weekly piano lessons, and I continued taking weekly piano lessons until I was 17 years old. The teachers I studied with were very, very close with world-renowned concert pianist Andre Watts. And ultimately, toward my latter years, I began sitting in on some of his master classes. At age 5, I began private elementary boys' school in San Francisco, in school with the sons of many, many elite families, including the Getty family. Ann and Gordon Getty in San Francisco, Gordon being the son of J. Paul Getty. All 4 of their kids were at my school. In first grade, at age 6, I was determined by this school to be hyperactive and to have a behavior disorder. My parents were told by this school that in order for me to continue there, I must see a private psychiatrist once a week for the duration of my enrollment. My parents did not question this, and immediately I began weekly sessions with an Edomite, aka Jewish psychiatrist, in my neighborhood, and that continued all the way through the 8th grade, becoming a major source of embarrassment and humiliation throughout my years in elementary school. During all these years, I became very, very proficient in computers. We had computers from day one. We started off with teletype terminals spitting out rolls of paper very noisily, allowing us basic programming and some rudimentary gaming. Then those moved up to, I don't remember exactly what was next. I think it was the Apple Lisa, if I remember correctly. And then we had TRS-80s. And then, I can't remember which came out. I think it was Mac and then PC. Maybe it was the other way around. I think PCs maybe came out first. But nonetheless, I had my hands on these things as they were being developed. And, by the time 8th grade came around, we were, me and those few that I had computer class with, we were pretty good. Running circles around each other in basic programming. Other things I would be doing at that time, I learned to skateboard. I became a downhill San Francisco skater with other skater friends, and it's amazing I'm still alive today considering all the hills that we used to do. We did some crazy stuff. We did BMX, motocross with dirt bicycles. We did ocean sports like skimboarding and boogie boarding. I learned to water ski. During these years, I became very, very good. All these years, I spent all my vacations pretty much growing up going to the family compound in Chapman, Alabama, hanging out with my grandmother at her house, which was built by Houston Jackson. Houston Jackson, the famous architect that did a lot of Boston University. My granddad died in 1975. He was a pillar in the Alabama Forestry Association. Down there, my family, my granddad and his brothers owned a lot of forestry and ran a lumber company called W.T. Smith that was ultimately sold off to Union Camp, Georgia Pacific. Today, the land is still intact, and the family members sell trees, and another cousin runs a forestry management business called Larson and McGowan. Okay. I remember the day my granddad died, walking in on my mom and her head buried as she was crying, having heard the news. One of the groundsmen from the compound down there, an old black man named Gene, was pretty much my best friend, and he would take me out into the woods and teach me to teach me to hunt and fish, and manage forest, and he taught me all the ways of how country lifestyle worked, and I sure hope today he's still alive. My first cousin there, the late Nicholas Floyd McGowan Jr., had his own private airport, which is still there today, and he flew a decommissioned Spitfire and Stearman and Great Lakes biplanes and Cessnas, and his son Norman used to take me up a lot and taught me to fly a little bit. Now we're getting up to 8th grade, and the break is probably going to come up any second now, but I'm just going to let just keep going here until it does. In my 8th grade Yosemite trip, we all took a trip up to Yosemite. I smoked pot with a bunch of other people for the first time, and when we got back, we pretty much got ratted out by a classmate. And at that point, since I was already, for years going to this psychiatrist, I went on double secret probation. A few weeks later, I was expelled. And my grandmother just happened to be in town that day, which was a great source of embarrassment for my mother. Things were not going well. She'd had a failed marriage, and now her broken son had just been expelled, and that didn't look good. My mom was getting pretty involved in the Junior League of San Francisco, and she went and sought advice from those friends, one of whom advised her about this reform school that had fixed her son, and maybe you should send your kid there. And just a little side note, that woman's son ultimately committed suicide. But this hadn't happened yet, and my mom, being very impressionable and looking up to these very astute, rich, old money people that she was trying to get close to. Sure. So the day after I got expelled, I went to public school in the neighborhood. Okay, I'm going to continue this story in a minute. Thank you all for listening. This is real tough for me to do. This is the story behind the story. I'll be right back in a few minutes.
What's better than Mountain House freeze-dried food? Buckets of Mountain House freeze-dried food. Now the freeze-dried guy introduces convenient, easy-to-store Mountain House survival buckets filled with our top-selling items. Each item is sealed in a Mylar-type pouch, and each pouch is neatly packed in clear buckets so you can easily see the contents inside. These Mountain House survival buckets come with well over a 25-year shelf life and are perfect for emergency preparedness, camping, backpacking, or at-home use. Go to freezedryguy.com, click on freeze-dried foods, and choose our 12-month, 6-month, 3-month, 1-month, or 7-day Mountain House survival bucket with 32 generous servings starting at just $69.95. And all orders to the lower 48 ship free. Call 866-404-3663 or go to freezedryguy.com. That's 866-404-3663 or go to freezedryguy.com. 100% veteran owned. The Freeze Dry Guy.
Positive results from satisfied customers of Heart and Body Extract continue to pour into our website, hbextract.com.
This is Al from New Jersey. One day I saw your ad for Heart and Body Extract, and it mentioned that it would help me with angina, so I decided to order. I figure I had nothing to lose.
Heart and Body Extract supplies your body with everything it needs to balance itself and maintain optimal heart and circulatory health with no negative side effects.
I took the formula 3 times a day as directed, and I kid you not, within 4 days, my angina pain was completely gone.
Order HB Extract by calling 866-295-5305 or online at hbextract.com. That's 866-295-5305 or hbextract.com.
I could not believe it actually stopped the pain. Heart and Body Extract actually works. This is just an amazing product. Even the numbness in my hands is completely gone.
Heart and Body Extract for a long and healthy life.
Hello, I have something I'd like to share with you. LisaKCandles.com is an all-natural soybean candle alternative. Before I found Lisa K Candles, I had lingering soot and allergens in my home. Not today. My Lisa K Candles are clearly a difference to see and breathe. And you know, that's a good peace of mind. LisaKCandles.com is an all-natural soybean candle, handmade from their popular line of fragrances. And guys, these candles make a perfect gift. Order an all-natural soy candle from LisaKCandles.com. I'm glad I did, and I know you will be too. Visit LisaKCandles.com. That's Lisa, the letter K, candles.com. Or call 731-441-3293. That's 731-441-3293.
Regardless of the dollar price involved, 1 ounce of gold would purchase a good quality man's suit at the conclusion of the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, the presidency of Franklin Roosevelt, and today. You may not be in the market for a new suit, but you don't know what the future may bring. And gold is the one financial constant the world has ever known. It can always provide you with your basic needs. Whether you're looking for junk silver, old silver dollar rolls, gold bullion, or fractional tradable gold pieces, Kettle Moraine is your full-service representative with over 50 years of knowledge and personal experience. Visit FlyingEagleGold.com or call us at 623-327-1778 today for competitive prices on all your gold or silver needs. If you're looking for real financial insurance, call Kettle Moraine today at 623-327-1778. That's Kettle Moraine, 623-327-1778.
America, politicians are about to vote on the creation of a police state and a permanent state of war everywhere on earth, including the homeland, mein Führer. The U.S. Senate will be voting on a bill that will give this president and every future president the power to order the military to pick up and imprison, without charge or trial, civilians anywhere in the world, including America. Illuminati, you'll never take control. Your new world order will lead to none at all. Let's just go over that again because it may seem insane or unhinged at first. The American president wants the power to arrest and detain anyone, anywhere, indefinitely, without charge or trial, forever. Yes, it still sounds insane.
All right, everybody, we're back. We're back for the second segment. All right, everybody, welcome back. Welcome back. We're now here for the second segment of the story behind the story. I'm your guest host, Alex Studer. This is the second of 4 segments, and today's topic is, who is Alex Studer? And I began telling the story, and I had just taken it up to the point of getting expelled towards the end of 8th grade. So I'm going to continue from there. Thank you all for listening. This is not easy. The very next day after being expelled, I began at the local public school, and my mom totally freaked. She looked, and all she saw was gangsters and thugs, and looked like bombs had gone off in lockers. She saw just Armageddon right there and there. And this was right at the time as I was applying to all the good high schools, and that, didn't go very well. I was flatly denied at all of them. So we then went to look at the local public high school. And again, my mom saw the same thing, just gangsters and thugs, and she just didn't want to have anything to do with it. And I had a paper route at the time, and it was one way for me to just sort of earn a little extra cash and kind of get out of the house a little bit. And I did it very early in the morning. Usually dark, and I would finish up and then get ready, get breakfast, and go to school. And my mom had I didn't know this, but I found out later, but she'd gone to her friends in the junior league to seek advice, and one of them recommended this reform school. Well, I didn't know that at the time, and one day she came and sat me down and showed me this leaflet promoting this school in Provo, Utah. And doesn't it look nice? Look, they have this nice facility. It's a 9-acre campus, and they have an indoor pool and a bowling alley and snowmobiles, and boy, doesn't it look like a lot of fun? And guess what? If you go there for a whole year, you'll get 2 years worth of high school credit. But the one trick is you don't get any breaks. You stay there until you're done. What do you think? Well, I don't know. It looks cold. I don't like it. It's all boys. No thanks. Well, that didn't work. And over the next couple weeks, I'd noticed a couple of my clothing articles just weren't making it back from laundry. And sure enough, one day I got back from my paper route, getting ready for school. The door to my bedroom opens, and there's my parents, fully dressed, with a suitcase in their hand. And my dad's 6'3", 250. He's big. I'm a scrawling little 13-year-old, and all the kicking and screaming ain't going to do no good. He just put his hand out and lifted me off the ground and charged me downstairs, and we got in the car, and we drove to the airport, and Mom and I flew to Salt Lake City, where I was met by this smiling used car salesman wearing a Hawaiian shirt guy named Carr Farnsworth. And I got in the back of his car and noticed very quickly there were no door locks, no door handles. I was in a cage. Plexiglass between me and the front seat. So we drove, I don't know how long it was. It was maybe a half-hour drive or something to Provo, Utah, and into the gates of Provo Canyon School. And this sits at the base of the Osmond palatial mansion, which is directly across from what used to be Bob Hope's mansion. So I got to know those facilities very, very well. As we arrived, it was snowing. There was probably a foot of fresh snow. And we were met very pleasantly, by some people in suits and ties, and everything was nice and yada yada. And then we were given the tour, and everything looked just spotless and immaculate. All the beds were perfectly made. It looked like, wow, they have the best maid service in the world here. Wow. Dining room looked, again, spotless. The gymnasium, the bowling alley. Yes, they have a bowling alley. Check it out. Indoor pool. Wow. Olympic size. Gymnasium. And then down this hall, we're going to show you slam, bolt, lock. And that's the end of the tour. My mom and the tour guide are on the other side of this door that's 2 inches thick, metal. And thus begins my next 4 months in a locked unit they call development. And no front walls on any of the sleeping quarters. Big fat 400-pound counselors walking around with ego and attitude, slapping kids around, and no windows whatsoever. Did not see the light of day. No forks, no knives. We all ate with spoons. It was really debasing. And the trick there was not to flip out, because if you did, they'd drag you into a padded cell and lock you up for 72 hours. They call it the P room, short for prescription room. And I can describe it. I've been in it quite a few times. At the time I was there, it was exactly as long as I was tall. It was as wide as one elbow folded to one arm outstretched. And it was probably 8.5 feet tall, with a light in a cage that was rarely on, and a very small square with a metal grate with small holes punched in it. Smelled like urine, and it was not a fun place to be. So I learned after a while not to act out, and not even to swear. Even the slightest clenched fist would land you in this room. So it took me a while to calm down and begin playing the game of building the credits, the merit, the permissions, to then begin going out on the buddy system on what they called the outs. And I had a buddy who was, kind of a mentor level, dude on the outs who took me out, and I would take little trips and get to know what it was like to live out there. Ultimately, I did move and slowly began learning the system of how to gain privileges by way of high grades and avoiding bad deeds and trying to do good deeds as far as their eyes were concerned. And this is a very, very tricky game to play because a lot of whimsical isms about it being in such a Mormonized place. Now, a little history about Provo Canyon School. This place used to be in California, but they got kicked out of California because California passed a law saying, hey, you can't run a place like that unless it's run by the state. And they said, well, screw you. And then they moved to Provo where they can run it privately. And they charged back then something like $48,000 a year, which I ended up paying for, and I'll describe that later. But meanwhile, here I am, Provo Canyon School. I got this I forget, therapist, they called him. He was sort of like my psychiatric counselor who gave me reviews and I ended up going back to Devo a couple times. It was easy to go there, and their form of punishment was called hours. And say, for example, you were in a classroom and you swore, just not even watching what you were saying, didn't mean it. Bam, you were sent out in the hall, you were assigned 30 hours, and you were immediately escorted, do not pass go, do not collect $200, to Devo. And they had standing sessions during the day, and you could stand off a maximum of 8 hours per day. And that literally meant standing, facing a wall, no more than 6 inches from your nose to the wall, perfectly motionless, perfectly silent, for 25-minute sessions at a time with a 5-minute break. Any variance, any failure to abide by the rules, you lost your credit. Repeated violations, you lost the ability to stand for that day. So it wasn't easy to get out on a 30-hour violation, and that was the minimum people got. Punching somebody, oh, you were gone. Nobody would see you for months or something like that. So toward the end of my being there for a year, I was thinking, okay, I'm going to get out. But the problem for them was, well, it's not the end of the school year yet, because I'd been sent prior to the end of the school year. So they allowed me a home visit to go and sort of test the water a little bit about how I behaved being back with my family and so forth. And I thought I did a great job, and I was like, oh, everything's great, I'm ready to go home. And they're like, yeah, well, guess what? You're going to stay another 3 months or so until you really can go home. But we'll give you one more home visit because we want you to, have an opportunity to apply to get back into the high school of your choice. And hopefully you'll have some better credentials with which to do so. And they were right. On the second home visit, I did have some successful interviews, and I did make it back into a school of my choice, the Lick Wilmerding High School in San Francisco. It's off of 280 by Ocean. And after 14 months, 9 days, 6 hours, 28 minutes, and 32 seconds of being a prisoner at Provo Canyon School, I was released, and I made it back home to my family. And we spent a summer doing vacation stuff, Hawaii and back to Chapman, and doing stuff as I prepared to get ready to go to a school I really wanted to be at. And had a great time when I did. Met a beautiful girl right off the bat. Easily the hottest girl in school. That was a great year. And instantly began, excelling in it. Because I had jumped a year. I was no longer in the same class with the people I'd grown up with. I jumped up a year. Instead of being a sophomore, I was now a junior. So I was kind of big man on campus a little bit. And began doing really well in computer and chemistry and physics, and fish to water in those, and really sucking at anything else. Just not doing well in anything that didn't interest me. Meanwhile, things at the home just kind of not going too well. I'm going to back up a sec because I forgot to mention something. At the time that I got expelled in school, it was approximately 1980. At the very same time this was occurring, or thereabouts, my first uncle, Sam Adams, the former CIA agent, went live on CBS 60 Minutes and exposed General Westmoreland for having falsified enemy order of war reports to LBJ and Nixon, sending tens of thousands of innocent soldiers to their deaths, to their untimely deaths against an uncombatable enemy. So that began a huge CIA lawsuit. They sued CBS, and TV Guide published their article about it called Anatomy of a Smear, for anyone who wants to go research that. It was huge world news at the time. Okay, now fast forwarding back to when I'm getting back from Provo. Okay, conflicts with my parents were to the point that I'd been kicked out of the house again. Towards the end of my tenure in high school, I ended up having to repeat I was going to graduate in 3 years in high school, but I was like 5 credits shy of being able to do that. And they said, well, sorry, we can't grease you on that. You're just going to have to stay another year. So my final year in high school was solid AP. It was AP Chem, AP Physics, AP History, AP Spanish, whatever it was all AP. I had done a high school band effort with one of my friends from the Getty family, and we are still friends today. We've had a long history of doing music together, and I'll get back to that. But back then, we had a ska band, and we called it the Free Toasters. And we did a single at Hyde Street Studios called The Shifter, and it instantly went on the radio and became very, very popular. In my last year, again, kicked out of the house. Things were not going well with my mom. She basically busted me with the SFPD having broken back into my house. She found me with a new girlfriend that I had at the time. So that precipitated her getting me my own apartment for the end of my senior year. And for the last couple months of that year, I was the only kid in high school with his own apartment. And you can do the math on that. Yeah. As soon as school was over, diplomas were issued. I did not go to graduation ceremony. We packed up, and I had gone to college interviews and a lot of nerdy schools in the East Coast and some Ivy Leaguers. And I got in a few of them, and I'd also gotten in early acceptance to UC Santa Barbara, which was both cost effective and close by and better weather and really beautiful women. So it was kind of a hands-down no-brainer for me. That's what I chose. And so as soon as I got my diploma, we basically, Mom and I went down and found me an apartment, and my educational trust started kicking in, the one that my grandfather had set up. Only problem was it was completely depleted. All of this money to pay the psychiatrist for those 7 years and all the tuition for Provo Canyon School, in addition to vacation trips and things non-related, all of these things had been billed to my educational trust, which was in reserve for college, and now there was hardly anything left. So boy, is it a good thing I chose UC Santa Barbara, because as a California resident, I got in rather cheap, and even today it's almost, well, it's well quadrupled since what I paid when I was there. Ultimately, the summer I was there, before freshman year, I met up with some Rastafarian Jamaican guys, and we immediately formed a reggae band. We were pretty popular there in Isla Vista. I met the president of the AS, and he started showing me around, so that by the time freshman year rolled around, I was pretty dialed in. I started taking classes. In a music class, I met a guy named Brian Jordan, who's pretty famous today. In fact, I just played in his band a week or so ago up here in San Francisco. And he and I and another guy, Steve Lutz, who now has a band called Kick Bricks in Chicago, got a couple other people together, and we formed this band. And for almost 3 years in UC Santa Barbara, we had a 7-piece funk band called Under Influence. And we burned the house down. We blew the roof off of the place. We really did songs nobody was doing. We did Prince and The Time and Scritti Politti and just a ton of hard stuff that no one even got near. We just aced it all. And so we did a ton of really big frat parties and had a really, really good time. We did some professional recording. At this time, I also went in and did some of my own solo stuff at a place called Santa Barbara Sound, which is now called Sound Design, and it's owned by two guys, Dominique Camardella and a guy named Mitch Bramlett. It was there that I met Jerry Moss, the M of A&M, and Kenny Loggins, Jimmy Messina, Don Fagen, Seymour Duncan, Jeff Beck, Jeff Berlin. The list goes on. I was meeting a ton of people. It was a really good time for music, and that's really where I got my thirst for the professional music world unstoppably. And in my third year, the trust ran out, and my parents decided not to pick up the tab. I don't know what they were thinking, but all of a sudden I was left out on my own with nothing to do. I had no way to pay for school. So, fortunately for me, the marketing director from the studio I'd recorded at had switched over and was now working for this research scientist named Richard Riegert in a place called Quad Group. And they did thin film stuff for the microchip industry. This guy apparently went to Alfred University and was one of the first guys who invented the world's first microchip. And he's like, hey, come over here and help me do some spreadsheeting. I was really, really good with Lotus 1-2-3 and spreadsheets, my computer background again. So I went in and helped do a bunch of pro forma P&Ls for new business startups, did business letter writing, and ultimately began using Aldus PageMaker and doing layouts for the marketing materials. This is at the very, very cusp of what we now know as desktop publishing. So working with the vendor that was outputting all this stuff, I became... ultimately, I moved over to work for these guys, and this is a guy named Bradley Mansfield, and I'm not even sure if he's still in business today. But it was there that I met Gretchen Rosenblatt. She's the daughter of Eli Rosenblatt, who is a real big wig down on one of the big labels, and so she kind of got me in, and some demos were listened to, and I kind of made the choice. Also, then I ended up working for a place called Type Ahead, again working with the developing field we now call desktop publishing, and this incorporated using Macs and Linotronics and film output and just the very, very beginnings of it all. But with this new lead I had, I was thirsty for the music world. I didn't know much about LA, but this marketing director, Michael Kelly guy, who's that's actually a fake name. His real name is Michael Keilty, Keilty, and last I heard, he was working for Players Club International. Boy, what a real shyster this guy was. He totally ripped me off. I'll tell you about that later. But at the time, he said he could show me the ropes, and he was doing a commercial down in L.A., and that's when I met one of my best friends today, the owner of NRG Recording in North Hollywood, owner and producer Jay Baumgartner. And at that time, he was recording Thomas Dolby's Astronaut and Heretics, and Thomas and I got friendly real quick because I knew the Fairlight CMI, and Thomas had one right there. And they'd had one at Santa Barbara Sound, and I was tinkering on it and learning it. So that was a source of real interest for me, so I just kind of moved to LA. We got a place. I started hanging out with Jay and just kind of hanging out and learning what he was doing. He had Pete Townshend's old Neve console and beautiful facility. And I'm going to tell you the rest of this in the second hour. We're going to go to break now. Thanks for listening. This is the story behind the story. I'm your guest host, Alex Studer. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
When I'm in the trouble, baby, better get back to me. Think it's unbelievable how you give me the hand to say it's nothing over fighting for. So baby, never die.
Continues to receive positive testimonials from people who have experienced amazing results, like Reed.
I just wanted to send you a quick but a very big thank you for Heart and Body Extract. I've been on the formula for nearly a month now, and the improvement in the circulation of my legs has been simply amazing.
Reed was facing a tough choice.
I was facing surgery due to the severity of the 100% blocked arteries in both my legs. And my decision, waiting for surgery, to say no and try Heart and Body Extract instead, has been thankfully the right decision.
And the result?
I can now walk up steps without noticeable pain.
Order Heart and Body Extract at 866-295-5305, 866-295-5305, or hbextract.com. Heart and Body Extract for a long and healthy life.
Hello, I have something I'd like to share with you. LisaKCandles.com is an all-natural soybean candle alternative. Before I found Lisa K Candles, I had lingering soot and allergens in my home. Not today. My Lisa K Candles are clearly a difference to see and breathe. And you know, that's a good peace of mind. LisaKCandles.com is an all-natural soybean candle, handmade from their popular line of fragrances. And guys, these candles make a perfect gift. Order an all-natural soy candle from LisaKCandles.com. I'm glad I did, and I know you will be too. Visit LisaKCandles.com. That's Lisa, the letter K, candles.com. Or call 731-441-3293. That's 731-441-3293.
Last thing the men behind the curtain want is a conscious, informed public capable of critical thinking, which is why a continually fraudulent zeitgeist is output via religion, the mass media, and the educational system. They seek to keep you in a distracted, naive bubble, and they are doing a damn good job of it.
Illuminati, you come to take control. You can take my heartbeat, but you can break my soul.
President Bush signed a formal agreement that will end the United States as we know it. And he took the step without approval from either the U.S. Congress or the people of the United States.
Illuminati, you come to take control. You can take my heartbeat, but you can break my soul.
And we're back. Thanks all for joining us. This is the third segment of the story behind the story on the 22nd day of January. I'm your guest host, Alex Studer, and today's topic is, who is Alex Studer? Thank you again for joining us. For those who've just joined us, please support the Micro Effect. Subscribe to the archives. You'll get what you pay for. Now, I just left the story at having just moved from Santa Barbara to L.A., with this guy, the former marketing director and the studio guy, Michael Kelly, a.k.a. Michael Kielty. And at this time, I still had a couple grand left in my educational trust, and so I signed up at Dick Grove music school in Los Angeles, and apparently this school no longer exists as well. But back then they taught professional audio recording, and I took music theory and vocal performance. I'm a singer also, folks, and I have a website where you get to hear all my music at, and I'll give you that link later on in the broadcast. I'm not COINTELPRO, folks. I'm a pro musician. And a little bit of a stoner. I got to admit, I'm a medical marijuana patient now, and I'll explain how I got to that as well. Okay, so started classes at Dick Grove, moved to LA, and because of all my typesetting and desktop publishing background, I landed a job at a Fortune 500 company, Peterson Publishing. And they do road and track, car and driver, and hot rod, and a bunch of car magazines, basically. Y'all have heard of it. And they're right there on Sunset and La Brea, right next to, Sunset and La Cienega, next to what used to be the Playboy building. I don't know if it still is, but yeah, it's right there, just on the outskirts of Beverly Hills, on the West Hollywood area. And so I went to work there for a while, and the next couple of years I taught 6 magazine art directors the process of switching over from traditional paste up using X-Acto knives and all that to doing it on a computer using a Mac with a customized version of Quark, and working with a special litho vendor in Nashville that had customized this whole front end process. So that went very well, and I ended up becoming very close with the Nashville folks, and also taking trips out to Crossroads and overseeing the entire end run process of the magazines that we'd produced. By way of the research and instruction that I had given to these 6 magazine art directors, Peterson Publishing reportedly went and spent damn near $5 million on retooling their entire production processes, and today they're all electronic. I have a lot to do with that. Pretty much then I was hired away from them by a vendor who offered me way more money. And I went to work for Jeff and Steve Alkazian out at Graphic Arts Systems in Burbank, and learning Hell scanners and Cytex imagers and assemblers. And we there also had the customized front-end Mac systems for people to do design work that would speak to the Cytex work for the high-end scanning and all that. So I did a lot of sales, a lot of marketing, and showing people how to do it. I also did a lot of production work, and was hired away once again by one of their clients who offered me even more money. And then I went to work for MGM, which was MGM Pathé at the time. This guy, Giancarlo Peretti, a former fish salesman, was buying it out and doing a takeover on debt leveraged by Credit Lyonnais in the Netherlands to the point of $1.2 billion. So in the year, I think it was 1989, I was there working on this 12-color annual report, the most expensive document ever produced, fully foiled and embossed, and it was just ridiculous. It ended up looking like crap, too. I mean, these art directors were just out of their minds, lunatics. But I did, they were paying me, and, I showed them how to do it. And at the same time, I was, constantly flowing revised numbers into the design work, and then running proofs. And this, I became tight with the financial crew over there, the CFO and the treasurer and the director of financial reporting. The director of financial reporting liked my number skills so much that he offered me even more money to leave the art directors and come over to his department, and they'd pretty much just done the takeover part of human resources, firing everybody. So there was nobody in the department pretty much except for like 1 or 2 other people, and essentially with a bare bones crew of me and the financial director, this guy named Steve Rath, and some other people, and a team of Pete Marwick auditors. We worked ferociously and filed that year's Form 10-K for $1.2 billion. that was pretty much an accomplishment. And meanwhile, we were taking breaks, watching the Gulf War going on, and that was all, a source of sadness, because a couple of the people that I worked with had brothers and stuff down there. Real tough time. Now, in the year 1988, right before all this, this is as George Bush Sr. is running against Dukakis. I happen to be sort of delving into this truth movement a little bit for the first time. And I've learned about Iran-Contra, and I'm very suspicious about all of it. And I've done a lot of research and following this guy, Daniel Sheehan, who had a thing called the Christic Institute back then. And his claim to fame was he had the only federal case against Ollie North, Richard Secor, John Poindexter, and other members of this Iran-Contra secret team. And this stemmed from two journalists who'd been injured with C4 explosive from a bombing attempt on Eden Pastora in Lepenka. The C4 traceable to U.S. military. We weren't supposed to be there. Uncovered a whole, anthill of activity, leading right back to George Bush Sr. So I followed him around for a while, and guys like Steven Seagal were supportive, and even Jackson Brown. But ultimately, at the end of the day, letter bombs were going off in judges' doorsteps, and the whole thing went away. You all know what happened. Nothing happened to Richard or Ollie or any of those guys. And to this very day, and then I found out, Daniel Sheehan, he's a Jesuit. Oh. And what is he doing today, folks? He's general counsel for Stephen Greer's Disclosure Project. Yeah, that's Daniel Sheehan, folks. So I am doing all this, and I'm watching the debate between George Sr. and Dukakis. And I'm watching George Sr. lie his ass off, and I'm getting really upset because, my uncle, right? Okay, he's already gone on 8 years ago, exposing General Westmoreland. I've done some rudimentary homework, and all this stuff in the Christic Institute adds up to, you're one big fat liar, dude. So, full of piss and vinegar, I was, upset, and I thought, I'll just write him a letter, And I did. And I think that's what got my uncle killed. I wrote a letter to then Vice President George Bush Sr. stating that, I knew he was full of shit. And I brought up my uncle's name, and, I didn't think anything of it until a couple weeks later when my uncle was found dead on his farm, quote unquote. Am I back? I can't tell. Okay, folks, I owe an apology. Apparently, I let a swear word slip through, and I didn't notice it. I apologize. I'm going out of my way not to use foul language, and if I do, it's a mistake, and I apologize, okay? I apologize to the micro effect. I'm not here to offend anyone. I'm not here to use foul language. This is not my agenda. So I don't really know where I was when I was cut off, but I believe I was talking about the death of my uncle in 1988. Now, I wrote a letter to the White House after watching this debate between George Sr. and Dukakis, and having mentioned my uncle's name in it, didn't really think much of it until he died a few days or a few weeks later, and he was found on his farm, apparently dead of a heart attack. Now, the thing for me that was oddly suspicious about all this was that his New York Times obituary, printed on October, I think something like 8th of that year, the day before the obit printed, I received in the mail a reply letter from the White House. And it was on very expensive letterhead, linen, very, very, gold foiled, embossed. And it was a letter to me dictated by George Sr. and typed by a guy named Charles W. Greenleaf Jr. It it stated something to the effect of, "Thank you for your letter expressing your concerns. The vice president has read it and is aware of your concerns. Again, thank you. We want to make sure to address all of your concerns, and by all means, feel free to write us further with any more of your issues." So the way I perceived it then, and I still perceive it today in relationship to the full-page obituary that printed the next day in the New York Times about my uncle, the late Samuel A. Adams of the CIA, I perceived it as a fish wrapped in newspaper. And basically, I to this very day feel that that's exactly what it was. So I got very frightened, and I still am, pretty much. At this time, my relationship with this guy, this roommate, this Michael Kelly guy, he was trying to get me to be his wonder kid, to help him make he had all these get rich quick schemes and stuff, and I was just not into it. So I bailed, and in the process of moving out, he just locked me out and stole all my possessions, including this letter that I just mentioned, and a whole mess of other private items that he had no use for, but he was just acting out of spite. And he really cost me a bunch of grief in that move that he made. So I kind of got unhappy about Los Angeles at all, and I moved back to San Francisco. I spent a couple years working at Anderson Consulting, which is now today Accenture, after the Enron scandal, working in a division called Strategic Services for a guy named Joel Friedman. And then I moved over to yet another desktop publishing house, working for a guy named Sanjay Sakuya at a place called DPI, Digital Prepress International. It was during this time that I received a call from my friend Jay Baumgartner, the producer-owner of NRG in North Hollywood, that he had procured an interview for me to go to work for a bi-coastal jingle house, doing ads and film soundtracks and stuff. So I took another trip back to LA and got the interview, came back a couple weeks later, got the job, once again packed my things, moved back to LA. My first day at work at this job was the day of the great earthquake down there, the San Fernando Valley, whatever they called it. The freeways were out. It was the places were on fire. It was just weird. But the guy wanted me to go to work anyway. He's like, "Can you make it?" I thought I could, so yeah, I ended up going, and that was my very first day at work for Jonathan Elias at Elias, which is now Elias Arts, and that's a bi-coastal jingle house. They do a lot of the top ads. And I started in as an assistant, and ultimately was given a shot at composing on a couple of the ads, competing to see if the client would pick any. And usually we'd get an ad in, we get the direction, and then a bunch of composers would compose their versions, and then a presentation would be made of all the things that had been done, and then the client would hopefully just pick one. And so I got a chance to start doing that, and toward the end I became quite good at getting selected, and this was ruffling the feathers of some of the other senior composers there who'd been there for many years, and that didn't go over very well, especially when I batted out of the park some of the top paying things that had been going on there, including Alamo and Nissan and Levi's and some serious national clients that were paying huge amounts of money. So they pretty much ran me out of there, fired me on some falsehood, and at the time, my other music friend, my rich friend John Getty, was also living down there, and I was also working with him on some records of his own composition, and he believed in me enough and helped fund the building of a new studio, and I started up back then what was called Organ Grinders Music. And again, we began servicing the advertising industry, doing film soundtracks and stuff. And for a while, it was really good. I did Sprint, Apple, Nissan, did a Pepsi radio commercial that in one check paid for the entire year. It was, for a while there, it was really, really good. Ultimately, we packed up everything, and both of us moved back up to San Francisco, and I operated the studio in San Francisco in the penthouse of a Russian Hill apartment building, with John living a couple floors below me. There I made the shift gradually back into record production, and I did the very final record for the late Eric Torgerson, who used to be lead guitar for Starship with Mickey Thomas, a band called Spacesuit, Zootcase, Reggae Angels, and a number of others. Russian Hill Penthouse got to be a little expensive, so I ended up doing a business venture with another former piano student from way back, a guy named Greg Gordon, who now owns and runs this thing called Pyramid in San Francisco. Back then, he had a different location, and we made sort of a venture deal where I'd go and sort of build out space and install my equipment, and we'd have a secondary room with which we could do productions, and that worked for a while. Finally, we parted ways. John ended up getting a beautiful mansion to live in up in the Berkeley Hills, a place called the Temple of the Wings. They purchased a bungalow down the hill from that, and I moved all the equipment there, and we made records there for a while. So for a couple of years I was there. We did a band called Insecto, the album You Are Here, which nobody has heard. Brilliant production that Jay Baumgartner, we mixed it down at his studio in NRG. We were the first full album to be mixed on the brand new SSL 9000J Total Recall console. Right after Korn had got done, they just finished Got the Life remix. During this time, I met a girl off the internet. We started dating and had a nasty breakup, as I found out later. She was a call girl behind my back with a pager and everything, and I didn't know for a while. So I was kind of torn up at this time, and things between me and John fell apart for a while, and we parted ways, and I ended up going back into San Francisco, moved into this 5-bedroom apartment with some other people, and decided, what the heck, I'm going to go to Burning Man and figure out what that's all about. Went and had a good time. Later, got a job with DigiDesign, and DigiDesign is now owned by Avid. But back then they were on their own, and they're the makers of Pro Tools, which is the de facto standard for anybody making recordings in the professional field today. Anyone making records is using Pro Tools, folks. And while I was there, I bought all the high-end gear with my employee discount, and that's pretty much what I'm talking to you today through, folks. During this time, I met another beautiful girl. She was with me for 9/11. We shared a lot of interest. She had been researching the USS Liberty and shared a lot of views that I did. 12 days later, my dad died, and she was there with me. She ultimately became pregnant. We broke up, and she aborted what were going to be twins, I find out. I reacted poorly at my job after 9/11. I was unhappy with my situation. I found a way to get fired, and I did. I began taking unemployment, feeling sorry for myself and sort of beating up after all of this. I ended up getting arrested for DUI and ended up with a conviction, which later in 2008 I petitioned for an expungement and was granted a reversal. Following all this, I went on a trip to Cabo San Lucas and broke my leg. I did the wrong thing, folks. You know, when you go down, you shouldn't cut corners, especially when it comes to renting scooters. And had I spent $40 and rented my own scooter instead of riding shotgun with this other guy, I wouldn't have gone through all of this that I'm about to tell you about now. But I broke the leg, And it was bad enough so that they said, "Oy, Dios mío, you got to either go to Guadalajara or Mexico City, or you need to go back to los Estados Unidos, hombre, gringo, Mr. Blue Eyes," right? They're all in my face, and now they want $15,000 cash for me to go. And I'm just looking at them going, I don't have that. I don't know what to do. And my friend is all calling my mom, and she's now married to this Edomite guy who's a former Stanford professor, and they're all off in their own world. He's got his own daughters that are now occupying all their time. And I'm just down here rotting in a Cabo clinic with nothing. And now they think I'm some big time drug dealer or something, and so they bring this armed federale with an AK, and he's standing in my room. And they think that they can somehow coerce me into giving them the cash by taking me off of the painkillers. So here I am, my legs swelled up after like 3 or 4 days, on no painkillers whatsoever, and I'm pretty sure I'm gonna die. Well, my friends somehow managed to help me pull off a ruse so that they believe that they've made a drop to me, and hidden in the clothes that they brought there was some money, and meanwhile I'd had it all the time on my money belt. And I busted out $1,100, and I just told them, "Hey, this is all I have. Please let me go." And they said, "Okay," but then they didn't help me leave. I had to hop out of there literally by myself on one leg, and I called a cab, and I had to hop 50 feet down this pathway on my own, broken leg, no painkillers, into this cab in a town that I did not know where the heck I was going next. Miraculously, we found my friend's house. I don't know how we did it, but we did. They were waiting for me. We immediately went to a pharmacy, got me some painkillers, and tried to figure out the game plan to get me out of there. And this was tricky because now we all believed that there was probably people waiting for me at the airport, trying to prevent me from going, trying to again roust me for $15,000 that they said was, I had to go medevac because I was a flight risk. I couldn't go a commercial flight. That's what they told me. And at the clinic, they wanted $5,000. So this is all just real scary stuff for me at this point. And somehow the guy that was going to take us on the fishing trip the next day had a van with tags to get on the tarmac at the airport. And so we put me in his van, and we drove on the tarmac right up to the steps going up to the plane. I hopped out, got on the plane, explained to the pilot what was going on. He gave me first class all the way, and off we went to Los Angeles, where I was breezed through customs with a committee of people on phones and clipboards with flying paper and just rapid activity. And these giant gates are parting with sirens going off and lights everywhere and guys standing at both ends of this thing with rifles. And I'm going through this, and stuff down my leg are just sheets of these painkillers. I was laughing about the whole thing. Made it back to San Francisco General for my first surgery, and all was going to be well after my orthopedic surgery until my Burning Man hippie friends, who felt bad for me being all isolated, decided to take me out, and I was taken a little too close to the beach. And I learned the very hard way, folks. When you've got an open wound being held closed by staples after a major surgery of any kind, or even any open wound whatsoever, you don't want to go near the beach. And I'll continue this in our fourth and final segment. Thanks for listening. This is The Story Behind the Story. I'm your guest host, Alex Studer.
Serving the planet, the Micro Effect. www.themicroeffect.com.
If you're considering a water filter, have you heard about Aquapail? Aquapail from FreezeDryGuy.com has huge advantages over many other water filters. American-made Aquapail units are designed and engineered to not just filter contaminated water, but capture or kill all bacteria and viruses to non-detectable levels. Aquapail has the fastest flow rate of any other water filter on the market, filtering a gallon of contaminated water in about 5 minutes. That's water when you need it. Now, get the world's fastest, safest, and most reliable gravity-fed portable water treatment system for surface, well, and wastewater sources. Aquapail. Available in 4 sizes starting at only $100. And all orders to the lower 48 ship free. Call 866-404-3663 or go to FreezeDryGuy.com. That's 866-404-3663 or FreezeDryGuy.com. 100% veteran owned. The Freeze Dry Guy.
Positive results from satisfied customers of Heart and Body Extract continue to pour into our website, hbextract.com.
This is Al from New Jersey. One day I saw your ad for Heart and Body Extract, and it mentioned that it would help me with angina. So I decided to order. I figure I had nothing to lose.
Heart and Body Extract supplies your body with everything it needs to balance itself and maintain optimal heart and circulatory health with no negative side effects.
I took the formula 3 times a day as directed, and I kid you not, within 4 days my angina pain was completely gone.
Order HB Extract by calling 866-295-5305 or online at hbextract.com. That's 866-295-5305 or hbextract.com.
I could not believe it actually stopped the pain. Heart and Body Extract actually works. This is just an amazing product. Even the numbness in my hands is completely gone.
Heart and Body Extract for a long and healthy life.
Hello, I have something I'd like to share with you. LisaKCandles.com is an all-natural soybean candle alternative. Before I found Lisa K Candles, I had lingering soot and allergens in my home. Not today. My Lisa K Candles are clearly a difference to see and breathe. And you know, that's a good peace of mind. LisaKCandles.com is an all-natural soybean candle, handmade from their popular line of fragrances. And guys, these candles make a perfect gift. Order an all-natural soy candle from LisaKCandles.com. I'm glad I did, and I know you will be too. Visit LisaKCandles.com. That's Lisa, the letter K, candles.com. Or call 731-441-3293. That's 731-441-3293.
Hello, brothers and sisters. We have witnessed the deaths of millions in fake wars. We have seen the erosion of rights and suppression of dissent and protest, and we have failed to stop any of it. This does not mean we are beaten. On the contrary, we are strong, and we can take the fight to our enemy because we are offensive, and we cannot be stopped. Join us as we wage war against our oppressors and tyrants by insulting them as often as we want. Yes, no matter what else you can or cannot do, you can always call your rulers odious swats. Go on, give it a shot, you'll feel better, and you'll have added to the growing ranks of the offensive. The owners of the earth, the fascist, selfish, greedy, lying, murdering, scum, the super rich and their miserable lives of privilege and dominance, the thieving, murdering, decadent, puke stains. You cannot stop us being offensive. Do you see? You cannot stop us being offensive. Do you see? We can strike at any time. Our arsenal of words will assault you with ever more insults. Rancors and warmongers, be warned. We are offensive. We do not take it back. We do not think we went too far.
This is the Micro Effect. www.themicroeffect.com.
And we're back. This is the fourth and final segment of today's Story Behind the Story. I'm your guest host, Alex Studer. And today it's a little more like the story behind the lab virus story, a little bit. My blog being labvirus.com. Today I've chosen the topic of who is Alex Studer. And I wasn't sure whether or not I'd be able to get through all this, the Reader's Digest version of what I've prepared for today, but it does appear that I will be able to get the end of what I've been trying to present to you folks today. And again, all this is long overdue as a response to filthy lies that have been published by some seriously twisted and deranged agent provocateurs who have chosen to do so, and I feel for them because they really have no idea what they've been talking about at all, and I'm here today to prove it. And I invite any of you folks who question any of this to check out any of my references. I haven't told you any falsehoods about any of this whatsoever. So I left the end of the third segment having just broken my leg and gotten back to SF General, where I received treatment, and was on my way to being okay. I had metal in my leg and a big scar and a lot of staples, and I was basically just kicking it back at home, trying to recover. And my hippie friends that I'd met at Burning Man decided, well, we're gonna come pick you up and take you out because we feel sad that you've been all, isolated and stuff. So we went out and we ended up just kind of hanging out near the beach, not going down into the beach, but just up above it and just kind of looking out at the water. It was nice for me to get out. I liked looking at the waves. It was a beautiful day, and it did help lift my spirits temporarily, but not for long. I found out the hard way that's not what you want to do when you have an open wound, is go anywhere near the beach. It's a breeding ground for everything that can kill you. Ask me how I know, I'll tell you right now. Everything that can kill you jumped inside my leg and started rapidly affecting me. So that later, after we'd returned, I very quickly went to 105 degrees, began convulsing, nearly blinded, was really in trouble, and my friends rushed me back to the ER, and I was immediately given intravenous vancomycin, which is pretty much the strongest antibiotic they have, and they have to drip it slowly, otherwise it'll kill you. And I was told that had I gotten there 30 minutes later, I would have been dead, straight up. So that began a big process, and now I learned that what I had was necrotizing fasciitis, and they call it neck fash in the hospital world, and it's pretty much the worst thing you can get. If not quickly stopped, it will kill you very fast. I was darn near septic and in real trouble, and so I began a very, very, very long hospital stay there. I underwent many surgeries. Often they didn't even bother closing it up. They just sort of wrapped it in saran wrap and kept my leg elevated because I was going back for another procedure in, 36, 48 hours. Many what they call I&D, which is incise and debris. And basically it's scraping out all the dead tissue. And back in the old days, this would have been accomplished by maggots. Today they use antibiotic beads and a number of other, I was being pumped so full of antibiotics and fluids. It was very hazy to me to recall some of this. Very, very traumatic time in my life. So all of 2004, 2005 were gone, shot. I was in the hospital. A year after the first break occurred, they'd sort of set it, and they were trying to get it to heal, but it was healing improperly. It was determined that a portion of my bone had osteomyelitis, bone infection. So they had to go and scrape away part of my bone, do a hip transplant of some hip bone. It was more painful surgeries. And throughout all this, I had multiple chances to die. I heard the doctors going up and down. They just told me, they were telling the nurses, we don't know if he's going to make it for tomorrow. I heard that a couple times. And of course, it was always held in question whether or not I'd keep the leg. I'd pretty much assumed at this point I was going to lose the leg. And I'd just sort of gotten accustomed to the idea of an amputation and a prosthetic and all that entails, I was ready. I was, if I lived through it, because that was always an issue as well. So, miraculously, I obviously, folks, I did live. And I'm happy to say today that I did keep the leg. And they were able to somehow repair it to the point of where I can actually play tennis again and do most of the things that I was able to do before, not with the same level of performance, but nonetheless, I'm okay. It's not pretty to look at. It looks like Frankenleg. And one of the last surgeries they did was what they call a rotational flap. And you know how you have like two pieces of your calf muscle on the back, right? There's like two pieces of the muscle. What they unclipped one at the end near the knee, and then they moved it up front and fastened it back again, so that it filled the space of the hole that was eaten by the necrotizing fasciitis. And then they did this was all plastic surgery people doing this. Then they did a skin graft to make skin grow over it. And so now I have this rather sort of exposed looking piece of muscle with a very kind of thin skin dealio on it. And I just call it Frankenleg. We've gotten used to it all. I was, so all in all, 15 surgeries later, I lived through it all. And I spent a lot of physical therapy on tennis courts. I'm a tennis player, folks. I've been a tennis player since I was a kid. And I found my best therapy was trying to challenge myself on a backboard on a tennis court. And that became mostly the physical therapy that helped me recuperate to where I am today, folks. I was prescribed so many painkillers. I was well destined to become a morphine addict. I am in constant pain. This is a source of long-term discomfort for me. I'm always in pain. I'm always in discomfort now. It's never going away. And I was able to obtain a California medical marijuana license and use that now for painkiller instead of the morphine. And I'm living proof, folks, that there's a good benefit for medical patients who choose that course of action for pain relief. It certainly saves the day for me repeatedly. Having recovered from all of this, I was again phoned by my friend Jay down in Los Angeles at the recording studio, and now he had another job offer for me to help with this guy Sammy O'Reedy start up his semi-studio business. And his idea was to not only compose jingles and theme songs for shows, but he was actually the guy inventing the shows. And so we did a lot of animation and video editing and acting and shooting and that sort of thing, creating these promos for new show ideas. And he'd hit it big. He'd had a couple big sales. He was the guy that created Coconut Fred's Fruit Salad Island, which was at one time the main competitor to the kids show SpongeBob, Square Bob, and I don't know. I don't watch these shows, but for a while that was that looked promising. It ended up not being, and I was sorely underpaid, and he wasn't as successful as he'd wanted to be. And then I had another accident. I got T-boned by a hit-and-run driver while I was driving home from work one day on my motor scooter, because I was too poor then to have anything safe to drive. I broke the other leg, and so now I'm bilateral. That one got repaired and healed quickly, and I made it okay. But at this point now, I was no longer working. I had nothing left, And I was just crashing and burning in LA, just on my way out, just spiritually and emotionally. Some friends of mine saw that. They saw the problem. They rousted up the troops, and I was rescued and brought back to Northern California, where I stayed on a sort of a farm with the mother of another friend I had, helping her out while he was away. And I recovered there for a couple months, and then began exploring back into San Francisco, couch surfing, and for a while I lived in an actual storage container, in a storage lot, under the radar. I would go there after hours and roll the door up and sneak in, and I would get out of there before any of the staff showed up in the morning. I did that for months and months and months. And at that time, I signed up with my local union, the IATSE, the International Alliance of Theatrical and Stage Employees, as a stagehand. I have lots of skills. I'm an audio engineer, and I know carpentry, and I can push a box, So I began landing gigs through them, and I am still with them today, very happily. And they helped me begin earning a little income to the point where I was able to secure an actual living circumstance back in San Francisco. So I moved back. Things are going pretty well. A friend of mine who had lived in a motorhome in a neighborhood close to me was a friend of mine, and one of the reasons why I knew to go down and sign up in the first place. Well, he ran into some trouble right after these two people, Len and Sherry, were in town for this thing called Conspiracy Conference back in 2011 and down the peninsula. And he got arrested and charged with child pornography and was dragged off to federal prison, and they hauled his motorhome away and everything. And I knew he was not that person at all. And he had a granddaughter, and they chose to say, the little child toys that he had was to lure little kids into his... That was totally not true. And I stood up for him, and the people from the news came by, and they were doing this piece about him. And I stood up in his defense, and it aired. And these folks, Len and Sherry, immediately started calling me a pedophile for doing so. Well, I'm here to tell you, folks, that I was right. After he spent 11 months in federal prison in Albany, Robert McDougal was cleared of all charges. He is completely free, completely vindicated, and now he's going after them in a lawsuit that I sure hope he wins. And if there's anything I can do to help him, Lord knows I will. Because he got set up, he got framed, I don't know why. I'm still not clear on why they chose to pounce on him the way they did. It appeared to me just a sort of a smear campaign to try and make motorhomes look bad, like everybody's a pedophile. I still don't know, but this channel KTVU here is a Fox station, and they've got a long track record of putting out these disinformational propaganda pieces, not caring about what happens to the people who suffer in the meantime. So I'm just here to tell you folks that's what happened. And to this day, I'm struggling. I am currently unemployed. I'm taking side gigs here and there, helping people make records and produce media. I do graphics, and I'm still playing, lots of tennis, and trying to be as healthy as I possibly can with what limited means I have. And that's the story, folks, behind the story of who is Alex Studer. Okay? Ever since in 1988, I began researching the truth movement, beginning with Daniel Sheehan, and I was around to see good old AJ hit the airwaves, and I knew right away he was not what he fronted himself to be. I learned about Montauk and the Monarch projects, and I met Dr. Ott in 2009 as we were both guests of Dr. Deagle's radio show, as we began researching this bioweapon, which we now know as H1N1. It's a triple recombinant created in a U.S. pathology lab with its origins from the 1918 Spanish flu, which they dug up in 1997 on an expedition. It's all there. It's all on the blog at labvirus.com. But to those disinformational shills who have gone out of their way to label me COINTELPRO, I say, prove it. I've given you everything you need to know, folks. Nowhere in there is there anything even suggesting that I am an employee of the FBI's COINTELPRO division. There is absolutely no paper evidence to show that I have ever been paid by any lettered agency for anything whatsoever. In fact, I have been targeted by them and harassed by them. I am nothing more than your regular guy. I happen to be really smart. I happen to have talents. And I happen to be rather upset about some of the things that I know, and I've chosen to speak up about it. And if anybody out there is of like mind, may I suggest you please do the same? Don't be silent. These are tough times that we are headed toward, and now is not the time to sit idly by and let things go down the toilet. Evil flourishes when good people do nothing, and I know you're all good people. I'm just trying to serve as an example. I'm doing the best that I can with the cards that are dealt me. I am newly reintroduced to the Lord Jesus Christ, and I am trying to do the best that I can to follow in his footsteps in a path of obedience. And I am so proud to know folks like Dr. Truott and Dr. Arthur Evangelista and Dr. Mike Castle and Dr. Will Spencer and all the other people that I've ever interviewed and have ever spoken with along this path of the attempt to uncover truth. And again, you all really need to be supportive of the Micro Effect and Joe McNeil and all the efforts that his family is putting forth. They too are putting their noses and necks on the line by coming forward and providing you such rare content that you will not find anywhere else. Please dig deeply and contribute generously to the Micro Effect and subscribe to the archives. They're $20 a month. It's money well spent. I subscribe myself. Okay? I pay the $20 every month, and I don't question why. It's just something I do. And it's the very least I can do, and I wish I could do more. If I were richer right now, I would be contributing heavily. I've been asking all of my rich friends to please listen to me as I do these broadcasts, and please dig deep into their overabundant pockets and contribute to the Micro Effect. I don't know if that's had any effect or not, but I'm going to continue beating the bushes until something happens. And folks, I hope you do too. Again, I state here now for the record, I am not, have never been, never will be COINTELPRO or any agent of any lettered agency. I am an independent, free-willed observer with my own opinion, and I am not subservient to or bought out by or enslaved to any third-party interest whatsoever. I am simply a good friend of True's, and we see eye to eye on a lot of things, and I am so flattered and honored that he's asked me to sit in for him in his absence on these shows at the Micro Effect. So there it is, folks. I don't really know what else I can tell you. I suppose I could go into further detail about some of the things that I've covered along the way, but I would suggest maybe if anyone has any questions for me, maybe in tomorrow's show I'll open up the phone lines and allow anyone who has a question and would like to know more to come back with me at that time. In our last very few minutes, I'm just going to ask folks to please continue visiting my blog at labvirus.com. I post daily or close to daily collections of headlines that I find relevant and important, and I try to keep it real. I've been told that I have a special nose for filtering out false stories, disinformational stories, and getting to the bottom of real truth. And I know that that's happened more than once, and I feel pretty confident that I'm right more than I'm wrong about a lot of things. I wouldn't be here today if that weren't the case. But yeah, there's no truth whatsoever to any of these lies, these claims that these people, Len Horowitz, Sherry Kane, and Barbara Politis Hartwell have claimed about me. And I challenge them to prove any of their claims if they so dare, because it won't be possible. Anything that they provide will be falsehood and lies, just as they have been up to this point. I've been honest with you folks and forthcoming. This has not been easy for me at all. I'm an emotional wreck at this point. I'm shivering, and I'm just trying to make it through these last couple minutes without completely breaking down. I apologize to Joe McNeil. I apparently swore in the last segment. I wasn't really thinking about what I said. I'm just trying to get through the story as honestly and truthfully as I can. And I sincerely apologize if I offended any listeners with my profanity. It won't happen again. I'm very respectful of the listening audience here and to the people at the Micro Effect who produce these shows. If all goes well, I shall return again tomorrow at the same time, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Pacific, and have even more things to talk about relative to what we talked about today and relative to what it is that I focus on over at my blog at labvirus.com. That's pretty much all I had to say, folks. We're kind of winding down. Time's going to run out here any second now. Again, just please do the right thing, and remember that I'm just a regular guy like anybody else. I'm not any special, PhD or doctor, or, I don't have a bunch of letters after my name. I'm just some guy. Thanks again, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Joe McNeil and the Micro Effect. Praise the Lord Jesus Christ, everybody, and God willing, we'll see you again here tomorrow. Thanks again, and have a good night. Bye-bye.
The Micro Effect.
www.themicroeffect.com